Yeah, we're streaming again. I do apologise to everybody that was in before. It's only took me 30 minutes to get my computer up and running again. It may crash again. If it does, I apologise, but we're not coming back. But basically, I'm back with Shin, and we were talking. We're in mid-flow, basically, about... We were kind of talking about the child pornography charges a little bit, weren't we? And how...
Well, that was what he was threatened with.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah. You there?
Yeah, sorry, we were talking about, like, obviously how he accepted the plea agreement,
right,
and how it kind of, he kind of had to accept it. But also, what I wanted to go over is the part. Do you know the part? What page of the chat log it is where he mentions the thing about not using his face?
Yes. Hang on a sec. If you go to, actually, I've got production and distribution on the same date.
Wow.
And almost in the same hour. So go to September 26th at 11:27.
September 26th. Fucking hell, that was a good guess. At what time?
Yeah, that was really good. 11:27, a little further down.
Wow, that was a pretty good fucking... Yeah, so here we are. This is one of the most important bits of the whole chat log, because he's recognising here that he knew what he was doing, that he was potentially producing child pornography at that point, isn't he?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, go up further. If you look at where he asks her for a naked picture to begin with, it's kind of cutting off on the page a little bit. It's just above the "oh my God." I don't know if you can see that. What? LOL. That's where he starts the conversation about. Keep going. A little bit more. Hang on. Here we go. Both. It's so funny how we become like numb to these, like anxious to see my penis and all this other stuff when we normally would get gassed.
It's still funny though.
Let's see. Yeah, but no, keep go down rather than up. The opposite. Okay. And hold up right there. Penis. Oh, hang on one sec. Want to see my penis now? Keep going down a little further. Was that good? Hang on, person. Here we go. I wish I had a naked picture of you. Okay, now that's not necessarily an intent right there. That's just kind of something that he desires. Okay, but she says, "Oh my God." He said, "What? LOL." She goes, "I wouldn't want to take that one. Why not?" Okay, now it's becoming more prodding. Now it's becoming an objective of his. It's not just a desire he's expressed. Now it's becoming something that he's putting into action. Oh, give me one sec. I got to change my headset real quick.
You got to put the towel at the bottom of the door. Is that what it is?
Yes, I got to put the towel. The buggy neighbors. Let's see. And then he says, "I wish I could take a picture. Why not? LOL, because don't be embarrassed, precious. Everything about you is beautiful. At least in my eyes, it is." That's a really interesting backhand compliment.
It is, isn't it? I wonder why he says that. Is it? I think
because. Go ahead.
Is it a way of him putting her down to bring her back up again? It's a bit of a way of manipulation to sort of draw on her insecurities, maybe.
Yes, but I think it goes a step further. I think he's trying to let her know you're not really desired by anybody else but me.
Yes,
so if you're going to be alone the rest, in other words, nobody's going to see you the way I see you. That's what I know. We went off track on that one, but
no, it's interesting. Okay. I mean, we don't have to just go over the legalities of it. Any insights that you have are
so
great.
Fertile. It's so fertile with hilariousness. It's just like how
I
can you
love
skip
this
that?
fucking document. It's great. It's better than my favorite book. It's like I was on vacation recently, as you might have seen on Facebook, and I was having a chat with my friend one night, and we were talking about my YouTube endeavours, and he knows nothing about YouTube. He's a bit older than me. Doesn't go on there, doesn't know anything about live streaming or anything. And I explained to him, what I do as a kind of hobby. And I showed him one of my videos, and he says, and it was one where I have my face in the corner as I'm going through the chat log. And he says, "Why have you got that hat on?" And I said, because Lorne wore it. And he said, hang on a minute, you're dressing up like a sex offender. And I was like, and at that point, it kind of hit me, and I'm thinking, fucking hell, he's right. Why am I dressing up like a sex offender? What a strange thing to do. It's like, I'm not going to go around dressing like Gary Glitter or fucking, the guy from Lost Prophets. I mean, how stupid would that be?
And you start, I don't know about you or anybody else who might be listening, but in terms of this document, especially when it's read by either Bay Shaman or Nathaniel Trevor, you can actually shut your eyes. I actually relax to this more than the most disgusting document in the world. How does that do that to me? How does it actually put me at peace?
It isn't the most disgusting document, though, is it? Because I don't know whether you've been keeping tabs on the Dustin McFetridge chat or whether you've read that. But if you compare that to this, it's like comparing a Disney script to sort of some kind of hardcore porn sort of description. There are parts of this, and we're getting onto it now, that are obviously quite difficult to stomach. But because there's an element of comedy that runs through it, it makes it such easier to sort of digest. Do you agree?
Definitely, most definitely. I think the biggest difference between those two chat logs between Dustin and Lorne is that Lorne humanizes, and Dustin is just a perverted robot.
Yes, totally agree.
You do this,
it's
do that.
A great way
and
of putting
Lorne
it.
tries to get into a personalized, I love you, more than just sex. Although I would say that 75% of his chat log is that. But he tries to add the additional emotional aspect to it. He tries to fill his, basically tell her who he is, and tries to figure out as much as he can. He really doesn't. He's not really interested in her life. He really isn't.
No, not at all.
But Dustin was just on a mission. That's all he was. I mean, there was no grooming. Let's put it. That's actually the biggest thing. There was no grooming in Dustin's, and Lorne is a case study in grooming.
Yeah, you're right about the humanizing thing, because really, I think it's one of many reasons why we find this so fascinating, is because Lorne showed us through this chat that he is a human being, although a very, however you want to say it, disturbed or troubled, whatever. There is a human being inside him trying to get out, and it's so distorted and just messy that it comes out in all this nonsense. But we see, the reason why he sort of caught our attention is because you've got all these elements of his personality. The country star is kind of bringing up these silly characters. The past that we got, about his background with his siblings and his mum and his dad, and there's even a romantic part of this chat that, if was taken out of context in some other chat with a normal, an overage, a person of normal age, it would be quite sweet, where he's talking about them lying down in the grass and he's stroking her hair. It's like the romantic part of him's coming out, and then he comes out with it and strips off and says, I want to rub your whatever. And of course, at that point...
Yeah, exactly. And you know what's interesting? I find that what's more interesting is the non-sexual stuff, where we get to fill in how he's humanizing himself and how he's, bottom line is, Lorne was looking for a relationship. He wasn't looking for, I don't think he was looking for online sex. You can get that if you want. You can get an escort. You can get anything you want. If that's what he was looking for. He was looking for a relationship, as inappropriate as this is, as illegal as this is. He wanted it all. He wasn't looking just to come over and just, have carnal relations with anyone. He wanted to make this girl, he wanted to be in someone's heart. That's what he wanted. And it's really weird, because all he does is self-validate through the whole thing. You think I'm cute, don't you? You wouldn't get 100 minutes on your card if you didn't want to talk to me that long, would you? Things like that, that he's trying to make himself feel like he's in a relationship and wanted. That's what he wants. That's all he wants. And he also wants to rape a kid. But, that's there's a little bit more, I think, complex and simple at the same time to Lorne than there is to Dustin. Dustin is just a
he's just sick, isn't he, all the way through? And it's like, I've been doing a bit of reading about like what causes people to be like this, and it's very much understood to be mainly genetic. Of course, not always, but some people are born with this compulsion to be attracted to children. I don't understand why people would feel the need to act upon it, but I think that Lorne isn't necessarily 100% attracted to younger children, specifically like Dustin is. Dustin is a true child predator.
It's just that no adults would fall for his bullshit or fall for his grossness, and his clear, grooming. He would try to do this. He comes off as the everyman. He comes off as the nice guy. He comes off as, the safe guy, the guy you can come to, things like that. That wouldn't work for an adult. Everyone knows that. Maybe Yap Yap. It would work for Yap Yap, but nobody else. I'm kidding, Yap Yap. But I'm just saying, these kinds of things can only be used on a child or somebody who's inexperienced. And the other big difference between Lorne and Dustin, wasn't Dustin married at some point?
Yeah.
So he's had a relationship. So he doesn't need that emotional filling or that emptiness that he's never had, like Lorne does.
You're right there. I think he's never had a fulfilling relationship at this point, has he? So there's that deep need that he has inside of him. And I think I have been criticised for being a bit too lenient on him sometimes with regard to my views, and I understand it, but I have a bit of, not sympathy for Lorne because he's brought it all on himself, but I have empathy for the pain that he must feel to be in that situation, to sort of stoop as low as what he has here. It must the feelings that he have.
Desperate.
Yeah, it's like you've got to not pity, but it mustn't be nice, and the things that have led him to that path. He's had a tough time and all that. He just consistently makes the wrong decisions and consistently takes the easy way and doesn't do the hard work, and it's completely his own doing. But I just think it's important as a human being, just because someone does a bad thing, don't necessarily condemn them as just being evil and write them off. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, but again, it's how he handled it afterwards. It's how he's got this constant denial. It's how he refuses to accept responsibility. That is really the true nature of who he is, which is a pretty pathetic guy. He's really pathetic, and that's what makes us laugh at him. But again, I'm not. Trust me, I'm not a Lorne apologist by any means at all. But at the same time, there is an aspect. If he didn't commit a crime like this, and I just knew this guy, and I knew of him, I feel sorry for him. I would just try to set him up on a date or something. Well, maybe not, but I would feel sorry for him. But the fact that he committed this crime and acted on this thing, and then denied it afterwards, and continues to deny it, and tries to shift responsibility to other people, well, he just gets uglier and uglier every day. So I don't my sympathy is gone now.
Yeah.
Only because of how he handled it.
And he got worse as well. I mean, for him to to have his YouTube channel and then somehow think he could make money off it from from us, and then not pay Betty back, and also sell T-shirts, and then expect people not to bring up the past. As I'm saying it, I honestly think it's some kind of illusion and that never happened. I don't understand how another human being can be that stupid.
I'm surprised he got away with it that long, given the tight leash that probation has on him. The thing about Lorne's supervised probation is that's life. That's a life supervised probation. Consider the fact he got out of jail, 5-6 years ago? And he is right now under the care of a counselor, therapist, who are basically the same thing. My guess is that they're probably for different areas of his psyche, and a probation officer. So that is the definition of heightened supervision. In other words, a very dangerous person. He thinks he has these delusions that someday he's going to get off lifetime probation, first of all, not even jump to unsupervised, but go right straight out of probation altogether, when he is one of the most high-risk probationers that they have right now. And one of the reasons why I say that is I heard an interview, I think it was a live stream, or I read it. It was the person who did the verification call. Southern Aphrodite, I think
Yes.
her name was. And she had actually taken a huge interest in this case because she felt that Lorne was a very dangerous fellow. And she went to the AUSA, the Assistant U.S. Attorney, and insisted that, she will see this case through, and whatever it takes, this guy's dangerous. Do not let him fool you. As a matter of fact, that's what makes him dangerous, because he can come off as likable, he can fool you, but he's not who you think he is. And those kinds of comments coming from an investigator, we'll just call her an investigator, to a U.S. goes a long way. And if Lorne thinks that he's ever going to get off supervised probation, he still hasn't passed the sexual offender class yet.
It's a really interesting point that you make there, because I think you've kind of, is it that Lorne is dangerous because he doesn't realise what he is, and this is something he's never been able to face up to. He doesn't see himself as being this predator, but he uses such manipulation and charm to get what he wants that it makes him dangerous, because he doesn't. He's kind of so ignorant.
Well, the reason why he's dangerous is because he's reckless, and I don't think he's smart enough to pull off any kind of caper or get away with any kind of crime. And the reason why I say that is because if you were on this intense, scrutinized, supervised probation, I think the last thing in the world I would do is get in a car and drive drunk. I think that would be the last thing in the world I would do, especially since it would get published on the internet. But even if it didn't, you would be making sure you're watching your P's and Q's. You got to make sure that when probation comes, you don't have alcohol in the house. That's another one. I wouldn't even be near alcohol if I were him. And if he wants to loosen up any of his probation leashes that they have on him, he's got to demonstrate that he's not a danger, and that's all he does. So I think you're right. He has this inability, this lack of self-awareness, and also situational awareness. He doesn't have any of that as well. He doesn't understand that his legal predicament is very precarious. He could end up, if he goes back to jail, finishing those last 2 years, in which case he'll max out, but they could civilly commit him. They could actually commit him for life on a psychological basis.
Yeah, and he sent pictures of himself naked to various people as well, Ramona and whoever else was talking to him.
Did you get yours, Andrew? I didn't get mine yet.
I couldn't help but look at those photos. I mean, I don't find the male body sexually attractive at all, but I don't know why, but I had to look at naked pictures of Lorne. Why is that? I don't understand.
Because you need to see what he's proud of, what he thinks is good, what looks good. And that's what's hilarious when you juxtaposition that with reality. Lorne thinks he's got a big dick. Lorne thinks he's got I think he actually said that in the chat log. He's got, people have told him he's got the nicest dick, whatever, than other people, whatever it was. But he actually has that. He looks like, he looks like, a bulked up porn star when he's naked. He doesn't realize what he actually looks like. It's like a funhouse mirror. You know what I mean? But be that as it may, we can go on and on and on about
you're right. We could do just one video on that. Let's get back to the sort of legal ramifications here. So basically, he started here and said, "I wish I had a naked picture of you." Now we must assume that even at that point, he recognises straight away that he's walking on thin ice legally.
Yeah, I think he's feeling it out. I mean, again, you got the LOLs. I wouldn't want you to. Why not LOL? So it's all like tongue in cheek to him until he realized that he may have. She took it too seriously and got turned off. But that LOL's there to disclaim it. You know what I mean? Don't be embarrassed. Everything about you is beautiful, at least in my eyes. Then he asks right there, "Would you take one for me now?" He's soliciting at that point. So there's no.
So would you say this is a separate offence here to what he's been doing for the rest of the chat? Because we're quite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, it's very thin though. It's very, very thin. We can go into the other evidence later, and the other evidence is actually at the steakhouse. We could talk about that in a sec. We're actually about to segue into that. And then he goes down and he says, okay, we can take one together. Let's see, until we're together, then I can take one of us together. Does that sound good? Blah, blah, blah. Sounds like a family picture there. Cool, yeah. Can I take one of my penis in your vagina? There he goes. So there it is right there. And not show our faces on it. Now, at this point, it doesn't matter how she responds to that. We just know what his intent is.
Yeah.
So the question is, did he do any act to further this intent? All right, to show that it wasn't just puffing or just bullshit. Well, yeah, he did. Hang on one sec. It's right here. Okay. Sorry, give me one sec. My notes are all over the place. Okay, let's see. 16. There was another section. If you go to, let's see, sexual assault. Well, I guess, but actually the kidnapping has a lot more evidence. But this right here would be backed up by two things. The camera that's in his glove compartment that he tried to pawn, allegedly. And it doesn't matter whether it's gone or not. It's in his car. He had access to it. He had an intent to do something.
Can I ask you a quick question though? If that camera, if he hadn't have had that camera with him when he was stopped, and obviously it was on the show that there was a camera in his possession, would they still have been able to go after him for the child pornography charges because of what he's said here, or would it have not stood up?
No, the solicitation, yes. Send me a naked picture of you, yes. But the actual, I'm coming over to take pictures of you. You gotta put some meat on that bone. You gotta bring it together with an act. But here's the thing, though. He had a phone on his camera. A camera on his phone, rather. And that's what he told. It's really stupid the way he said it. He said, I had that camera that was in the glove compartment because I was trying to pawn it because I didn't get enough gas or whatever reason he did it. And the other thing is I had a camera on my phone. They didn't say shit about that. Well, guess what, Lauren? They didn't have to. They would have. Trust me. And that doesn't help your case. Trust me, to say that. So he had the means, and he brought the tools, and he expresses the intent right here. Now let's go down a little further to at 11:30:29.
I'll send it to your Gmail so that you can keep it hidden there.
Distribution.
Ah, wow.
I mean, assuming that the predicate act of producing the child porn has been done, that's his further intent.
I mean, what do you think his exact intentions were there? Because he's playing a very risky game. If he wants, he wants her to own that photograph so that maybe he can get it off her when he wants.
Send it to her. No, he's going to have it for himself, but he's going to send her. He's sending it to her by Gmail.
Oh, that's right. I'll send it to your Gmail. So she's going to send it to him.
To her, he'll have his own copy. He's just going to send her a copy of it.
That's it. As well, notice how he's highlighted the extremely because he knows.
Oh yeah, so you can keep it hidden in there. Okay. Where I don't mind if nobody knows your password to your email. You can be all right if you just leave it right there. Okay. You can't say that you wouldn't. Do you think that he would delete it once he sent to her? I mean, I highly doubt that. But the bottom line is he would have to prove that as a defense. That was his intention. Although that line kind of covers him, where he says that you can keep it hidden. But it doesn't mean it's mutually exclusive. You can keep it hidden, and that doesn't mean I won't have one too. You can interpret that many ways. But yeah, distribution evidence is a little thin on the chat log, but not the production.
Yeah, I mean the distribution thing.
I see that as a strong case.
The distribution, obviously, that law is specifically in place to try and prevent widespread child pornography on compute, obviously on however it's distributed, I don't know, but obviously that law,
possession.
Yeah, it's there to protect, to stop people distributing it on a mass scale and try and prevent it, which they won't, because obviously there's too many sick people out there. That's not what we think Lorne was trying to do. In other words, he's not big time enough to get involved in that. But what's interesting is, let's just say that, for argument's sake, which is a ridiculous thing, but let's just say that this was real and Kayla was real and he got hold of that photograph, right? Let's just say, knowing Lorne's tendencies, we're going slightly off topic here, but we'll carry on. Let's say Lorne got hold of... He got hold of that photo, sent it to her email, looked at it and thought, my God, that's great, and got off on it, basically. That potentially could be the start of someone who goes down that path, down a really horrific one, and starts off...
You have production and possession in that case. If he didn't delete it, it doesn't matter. Even if he had it for 1 split second, FBI can get metadata off his computer. It's not a problem. If he had it at all in his computer, it didn't matter. It's possession. And if he created that image, that's production. And that's what it comes down to. The weaker case is the distribution aspect. Now, keep in mind that distribution does not require there to be a monetary motive behind it. In other words, you're not selling it to other pedophiles. You're not putting it on some website that has subscribers that pay you, things like that. It's not like that. This is just for my own enjoyment, and basically it means publication. It could be to the victim herself. In this case, that's enough for distribution. Doesn't matter whether there was a monetary value, a monetary exchange, or anything like that. The fact that he shared it with anyone, even the victim, is enough. That's distribution. So he's got production. He's got, as far as I can see, he's definitely got possession, and I think I would make out a case for distribution as well. So if you were looking at those crimes, okay. The child attempted production of child pornography, that's 18 U.S.C. 2251. He would be considered with a first-time offender. Let's assume that's true. And again, this would be a minor for under 16. It would have a harsher punishment. It would range from 15 to 20 years, but for minors under 16, like in this case, it would be no more than 30. So that was the deal that was on the table, was the maximum sentence. I shouldn't say it's a deal. If he didn't take the deal, the prosecutor would have gone for that charge.
Why do you think that they gave him that plea agreement rather than going for the attempted child pornography charge? Do you think it would have been a difficult task for them to prove it? Because it wouldn't seem that it would be.
Not at all. Not at all. That's why they did it 3 months ahead of time. They saved themselves a lot of work. What I'm saying is, he was indicted in I think it was February or March. I can't remember what it was, but in June he pled out. Okay, and then he doesn't get sentenced for a few months later. If he had pled out, say, in December, you had put the Justice Department at work for 8 months, and they would dig up everything under the sun. They hadn't even started working yet. The reason why is because he was busy with the state court issue. He was sentenced in state court first. As a matter of fact, all of his good time, all of his time served was, and this is where he got screwed, was not applied to his federal sentence. It was only applied to his state sentence. And because that's where he was. He wasn't in federal custody. He was in state custody. And, I'm sure his lawyer might have known about this or should have known about this, but, he lost approximately 183 days.
Wow.
A little less than that. Because it was applied to the wrong sentence. because but anyway, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. But
I'm sure he lost a lot of sleep over that, if you get what I mean.
yes, he did. Let's see.
Quiet down in there, Armstrong.
Then we have, distribution. Let's see, what is the penalty for that? That's, I think that's 15 years. Same statute. Let's see, what's the statute on that? They're all under 18 USC code, but a lot of them are there. But there's a lot more that can be applied. But if you look at that one, and then you look at two of the other big ones that he dodged the bullet on, I believe the attempted kidnapping was a very good case until the decoy made that last phone call while he was in the shower. And I explained that to you, I think, earlier. I'm not sure whether anybody heard us. They had a good kidnapping case. Lauren had conspired with a decoy, of course, to have her picked up, have his trail essentially covered up, all kinds of things to avoid detection. He did all these things. But the most important part of that was throughout the chat log itself. If you just stick with the chat log, it talks about, I'll pick you up. Let's see, here it is. Let's see. Let's go to 10/2 at 10:35.
10.
October 2nd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's Megan's plans. Okay, and the whole page, actually, there's more than this. There's a lot more. On the way there, he's talking about picking her up. Okay, you see his intent. His intent is to kidnap her, take her across state lines without authority from her parents. That's kidnapping. Some of the statutes clear it up if she's returned within 12 hours, blah, 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 but he had no intention to do that. But he's talking about, let's see, hang on a sec. At 10:35, he says, on the way back, I can pick your hand up. And then at 11:07:31, he says, let's see.
You know it's going to be at night time when they pick you up, right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the record's just full of things like this. And
okay,
then,
bring a change of clothes, even though you won't be wearing any.
I know. Oh, you got to get past the funny part to find the evidence. October 3rd at 11:31:43.
Sorry about the scrolling, guys. 11:31 and 43.
11:41, 31:43, right.
When I pick you up, you're going to have to... Everything ready, so you can waiting for me to get there. Okay. Yeah.
Take a look at October 6th at 9:50:30.
October 6th. Go on 1 sec. $9:53.
30. Let's see. Where is it? I had it right here. 10:06, 9:50. 30. So it's 9:50.
Oh right. Have you figured out what
you're going to wear
when I pick you up?
Again, the record's got a lot of stuff like this. But the reason why I bring this up is there was a dilemma. Lauren didn't know whether he should stay with her or he should bring her back.
Yeah.
You remember many, many times he debated that. He debated that on the phone. He debated that here. Actually, I don't think it's on the chat log. Most of that was on the phone because he refused to have those discussions on the chat log. It may be in Facebook or something, or whatever it was back then. So, give me 1 sec. Sorry.
It's okay.
I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. There's so much excitement.
There's so much to do, though, isn't there? We could go over just one element and talk about that.
So Lauren finally. This is really important. Lauren finally settles on kidnapping her and bringing her back, rather than staying with her. Anytime he talks about taking her back, he's talking about kidnapping.
Why do you think he wanted to do that?
I don't think he would. I think, that's kind of outside the legal area, but I would imagine to avoid detection somehow. He didn't have a place to park his truck. He didn't know about the woods or anything around it, all that creepy stuff. I think it would have been easier for him to have control over her. I think it would have been a lot easier for her to have control over her.
Yeah, he feels more comfortable because she's in his environment And he wants her to be out of her comfort zone a little bit, like you said, so he's got more control over it. It's quite creepy the more you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is, if it stayed at that, where it was Lauren's idea, and Kayla was always non-committal when she was asked. She would always say, I don't know, what do you think? Something like that. She would never say, we'll go to your house. That's important. We should go to your house. Until that last phone call. And the reason why they made that last phone call is because they realized the Stinghouse had that garage or something that Kayla said that didn't exist or something, so she wanted to straighten that out. That was a risk. Because what they did is they opened up that discussion again. So what do you want to do now? And that's when Kayla said, we should go to your house.
Yeah.
Actually, that was the first time she said it. Now that's a police officer saying that. You can't hold somebody accountable for a plan that was initiated by the police officer.
Yeah, so how does that stand on a legal basis then, with regard to the crossing state lines?
You can't charge it unless he actually did it. But I'm saying you can't do an attempt. This is an attempt. Everything's an attempt in this case because it wasn't a real girl. But what I'm saying is once you get Lauren to say, I'm going to pick you up, I'm going to take you across state lines, you should never, ever call back and snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory.
Yeah.
And give him another shot to be ambiguous about that, and then make the double mistake by suggesting, I want to go there instead of you coming here. That's what wiped out that I believe that crime, the decoy, really fucked that one up.
Yeah.
I don't know why they thought that last phone call was that important, but once they did that, they got rid of the kidnapping.
Do you not think that last phone call was, if you think about it, right, all that team are getting Lorne into position for a month, right? Can you imagine if he decided not to do it at the last minute? It'd be like all their hard work for nothing. Is it just a way of them making sure and drawing him in?
They would still pick him up regardless.
But wouldn't the case not be as strong though because he didn't turn up to the house? Because don't you have an extra charge when he goes into the house? He's committed a further offence by walking through the door, maybe.
Well, no. Remember what he was charged with? He was charged with attempted aggravated sexual assault.
Yeah.
And travel with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. If he never got out of his chair, there would be no evidence of that other than what's in the chat log. So then you're stuck with, okay, did he do anything illegal electronically? Did he do anything illegal over the internet?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. As soon as he exposed himself, they could have actually picked him up. They probably had Nashville PD on alert.
What about them being under pressure though to get him there for their entertainment value? Because perverted justice will be, I would imagine, there'd have been someone whispering in their ear from NBC saying, "Listen, we want these fuckers to turn up so that we can get decent TV." So maybe they're under pressure that way, and maybe Lorne was onto something when he said something about a few dodgy backhanders going on here and there. Of course, we don't deny them that because they did a great job and fuck the people that got caught. But of course, don't forget, right? Lorne's segment was the most entertaining in the whole of TCAP. If you want my opinion.
Yes. Well, I don't think that would have worked. I mean, again, I just jumped onto something else, but the point you just raised was really interesting. The purpose of that phone call was not to make sure he comes. I don't think there was anything that he had said that gave them any reservation that he wouldn't.
But they're still going to be a little bit nervous, though, aren't they? Because think about how many people don't turn up to the house after conversations.
Sure.
And think about all the time that they've invested in it. You're talking nobody else spent the amount of time on there that Lorne did. No one.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on one aspect of that. I believe they called him and they straightened out, what the house actually looks like for two reasons. Number one, so he didn't get lost and go to the wrong house and didn't try to look for a house without a garage. And secondly, if he did find the right address and he knew it was the right address and he didn't see a garage, he might get scared off. You might think it's a setup. I think, I think those are so remote. Those Lauren. I mean, I guess what we know about Lauren now, I don't think lack of a garage would have stopped him.
No,
I don't think so.
Of course, but we know that because we know him, don't we? Through everything that's happened back then. I suppose I'm just trying to find out why they made that call. I'm trying to not justify, but I'm just trying to figure out what their train of thought was, because there must have been a reason why they needed to do that.
Does anybody have any opinion about that?
Let's see. From nothing sexual in chat log, he got arrested. Yeah, I mean, anybody got any ideas in the chat? There's quite a few people in there now about why they did the final verification call. Was that on the same day that he went?
Yes, it was. I think it was an hour or two after he had said goodbye.
But I don't suppose there's any reason they wouldn't do it, is there? Because they're not risking anything, are they? So did Lorne ask for that call? How did it come about?
Well, no. I mean, when she says I have a garage, that instantly opens up the discussion that Lorne could hide his car in there. Okay, meaning, guess what? Let's reevaluate. Do you want to come here now, or do you want to take me back still? Because that's how Lorne took it.
Yeah.
That wasn't well thought out on their part. That wasn't well thought out, because what they did is all he had to do was show up, and they had him for the kidnapping. But now that they did that, what they suggested, they go across state lines, not him. It's their plan, not his. They could easily, whether a jury believes that or not, it's really a question of fact. But it made the case a lot murkier, and it felt more like entrapment than anything else. So that might turn off a jury. That's why they probably didn't charge him. But it doesn't mean if he didn't take the plea, they wouldn't eventually have charged him and give it a shot.
Brandon's just said in the chat, Shin, that I think it had more to do with scheduling and confirmation. As funny as Yazan and Tennis Boy was, it's not ideal for Chris. So they've got to... It's vital that they know what time is coming so that they can arrange the other predators, can't they? So it's all like a schedule, isn't it? One comes after the other, they're filming.
Yeah. But if you remember the verification phone calls, he was very specific. I'm going to go to get some gas, I'm going to pick up some rubbers, and I'm going to come down there. I should be there by 8:30. He actually said that. There was nothing that led them to believe that would not happen.
Yeah.
And I would think that if it would raise more suspicion if they called him back to make sure that he's coming. But then they call him back for that reason. I think in the event that he did come, didn't see a garage, and think it would be a setup and leave. I think that's why.
But Lorne never suspected a setup, did he? Lorne never suspected.
No, they overestimated it. They overestimated his ability to sniff it out.
Yes, you're right.
And by doing that, they got rid of a very serious charge by doing that. Or Koala, at the very least, should have been coached not to say, we should go to your place. She should have been coached. She should have been told, make him say it. Make him say it. It's similar to when a decoy is not the first person who makes contact with somebody in the chat room. It has to be that individual making contact with the decoy. See what I'm saying? There's a big difference if a decoy was out trying to find people to entrap and bringing them into her trap rather than them come to her, which is the only way it'll work. The only way legally it could work. The other stuff would be entrapment. If I go on, I'm just saying. I mean, what I'm saying, it didn't seem like the operation that there was. I don't know if there was. I think there was. I know there was. KBI was there. I believe the local police were there, but I don't believe anybody from the district attorney's office was there. Or overseeing the whole thing, and that might have helped in this case.
Yeah, okay, Joey's in the chat. Hi, Joey. He's just said no prosecutor ever went after a T-Cat guy for kidnapping.
Right. I mean, well, in this particular case, I think you had pretty good evidence. I'm not saying they would have gone after him. Everything's discretionary. Everything is. I mean,
Do you know what's really funny? It's just making me giggle, right? As we're going through this now, when we're looking at all the evidence against Lorne, how he had the audacity to put in his lawsuits that he said no many, many times and he was coerced by the decoy. It's like, where did you say no? He said in his lawsuit he repeatedly declined the request to attend and was bullied into it. It's like, oh my God. No wonder everybody hates him.
I like his witnesses. His witnesses to support his defense. His witnesses are the following people: Tony, his mom, and Michael Patterson. That's all he's got. That's all he's got. That's all he's got. I mean, mom, yeah, you got a bias, you're a sweet lady, blah, blah, blah. Tony, God knows what he would say, but Michael Patterson is your witness? I think you need to have a little bit more credibility with your witnesses. But other than that, all of the evidence goes against, and it's in black and white. There is no on this thing about coming over there. There's nothing about that. And that's
what about female powers, though? I mean, let's be honest, right, Shin? We've all been duped by female powers once or another. I've never taken these extreme steps, but if we can take Lorne at face value and let's give him the benefit of the doubt that female powers were used on you, they can make you do some pretty crazy things. I even bought a girl a drink once. I mean, how crazy is that?
Well, I tell you, and female powers start to get more potent right around puberty. So, I think that, Lorne just got caught up in bad timing, that's all. But,
poor Lorne.
Anyway, hang on, I got to change my headset real quick. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I might lose you, so go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, everybody in the chat, by the way, and I'd like to apologise again for the hiccup before when I started and the computer went down. I really am going to have to get it sorted, but Shin's recommended I get a MacBook Pro, which I might do. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, sorry about that.
So
going to Joey's point about no predator has been charged with attempted kidnapping. Or
they never even tried to, is what Joey said. They've never gone after any of them for kidnapping.
No, I understand that, but you could say the same thing about attempted rape. That no one was going after for attempted rape. And let's see, travel interstate commerce to engage in attempt unlawful transaction with a minor less than 16. Okay. He could have been hit with, at the very least, attempted aggravated sexual assault. Excuse me. That's what no, I'm sorry. What was he hit? Yeah, attempted aggravated sexual assault. That's 18 U.S.C. 2241. Huge penalty for that. Not more than 30 years on that one. He could have also been hit. Again, these are similar to rape charges. They're sexual offenses. Travel with intent to engage in criminal sexual activities, another one, 18 U.S.C. 2423. Again, not more than 30 years. Add up all of these things. Add up the production of child porn. Let's forget about possession and distribution. Go right to, forget about the attempted rape. Go add attempted aggravated sexual assault and travel with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. 30, 30, 30, essentially. You could run those sentences consecutively, not necessarily concurrently. Typically, they would run them concurrently, but he could be looking at life the rest of his years.
Jeez.
And so that's one of many things. He also could have been hit with sending porn through the internet to a minor. That's, if he didn't show up, they would always have him for that. And they could have hit him with 30 counts of that every time he did it. Or at least every night.
So it could have worked like that. You couldn't have had just one charge. If they'd have done it like that, they could have got him every time.
You have to have a theory. And the theory is that every time he logged off, he had an opportunity to think about it, what he was doing. He had an opportunity to reevaluate what he's doing, and he didn't.
You're right.
And therefore, it's like a new act that's coming up. If he had a chance to, now this is a theory. A prosecutor prosecutorial theory, but it doesn't necessarily mean the jury would buy it. But if they hate him enough, they would. That's the whole point. Juries are human beings like the rest of us. If they read this chat log, for instance, I would imagine they'll do anything a prosecutor wants them to do. And that 7 years is nothing comparatively.
No, it's a great point, that, because it's something that we talk about often. He had so many opportunities to make a decent decision and leave her alone, or think, when things come up in the chat, like she talks about school and her father and her friends,
Mm-hmm.
it's like at no point did he ever think this is a bad idea, did he? At no point.
No. And by the way, you also have these other minor charges, contributing to delinquency of minor. Typically, that's a state charge. I'm not sure what he got hit with. But every time he was telling her, don't worry about your grades, sneak away from your father, anytime he was doing something to have her subvert the authority her parents had on her, he's trying to lead her wayward, and that's contributing to delinquency of a minor. Now, that's not that much, but it depends on the underlying crime that he was trying to do. Typically, you get those when you give a minor beer or something like that, or a cigarette. But in this case, I would imagine they throw the book at him.
Shin, Joey's got. I don't think you can see the chat, but Joey just wanted to say to you, for the predators that went to trial, maybe the prosecution was worried about overshooting and a jury wouldn't convict since there was no victim.
Yeah, that's always a concern. It's always a concern, but you have the same situation in a lot of different other kinds of investigations. You have a lot of drug cases. They're always convicted. They're usually controlled buys with somebody who's been jammed up and is turned state evidence and introduced their supplier to an undercover cop. There's no actual transaction that's going to take place, but the fact that you tried and the fact that you everything that you did, those prosecutions happen all the time. And then we took that last example last time we talked. What if there was a serial killer on the loose and he was killing prostitutes? Well, the cops most definitely would send out decoys for that. What if a decoy caught him and it wasn't an actual victim? Would a jury ignore that? I don't think so. Remember, they're human. It's all about common sense. That's all it is. Everybody thinks that you have to prove, basically you have to have video evidence of everything, but not necessarily. Just enough to get over the bar. That's it.
Conscious type person's just asking you, Shin, how often do prosecutors actually apply that theory?
My earpiece cut out. Can you ask me that again?
Yeah, conscious type person's just asked you, how often do prosecutors actually apply that theory?
Which one?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Can you just elaborate, conscious type person? I think we've overshot what we were talking about earlier. I think it's the theory with regard to, when you was talking about you could try and prosecute him for each individual time that he made. How often? I think that's the question. How often would prosecutors would they ever go for something as extreme as that? Because it must be. I would imagine.
Not that often.
Is it too complicated for them to do it?
No, I can't imagine that they would do that often, unless there was a clear demarcation between the two events or the several events. This case, I think there's enough, but maybe not enough to make it 30 counts. But if they say he did this on a Friday and then he did it again on Monday, you can't consider that a continuous act. One long count. Now he did it twice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times it depends on the circumstances. And you're right. A lot of times these prosecutors do not want to look like they're overreaching or overcharging. But you know what? Let's face it. There aren't going to be many people who are sympathetic to people who have been charged like this. So I don't think any.
Do you know, Shin, right, as we're talking about this and you're pointing out all the sort of things that Lorne could have been done with and the crimes he's committed, and it highlights more for me just how, I knew how morally shaky he was anyway, but any kind of lingering doubt that I had that he was kind of an innocent part of him trying to get out. It's just getting overshadowed by his kind of his sort of maliciousness, really. But one thing that I do understand why Lorne has this incessant need to sue NBC and feel like he's hard done to is because if you look round at some of the other Predators, they got off with it compared to him, didn't they? If you look at the ones in Murphy, that's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? Because obviously the district attorney. But what I'm trying to say is you can understand where Lorne's frustration comes from with regard to him comparison to some of the other Predators, can't you?
Yeah, well, there was a point made during the Florida thing that the cops were pretty aggressive with the Predators because Florida has pretty liberal gun laws. And so each department, each state, each jurisdiction has their own procedures for these things. Yeah. Just because somebody in California got to walk out and get handcuffs on doesn't mean that Lorne's entitled to that in Kentucky. And again, depends on the circumstances. If you noticed, they're not going to rough up Dustin McFedrich, who came from the same sting in Kentucky, or they didn't throw anybody else to the ground. But Lorne seemed to be a different kind of case. Maybe he has an argument there, but if you're going to compare it to jurisdictions, that's apples and oranges.
Yeah, no, but that's how he was treated, like, physically. But what about his actual sentence, though? What about him getting 5 years compared to some of the Predators that didn't
Lorne,
even go to prison?
There's a flip side to that, Lorne. You could have been prosecuted in Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys got some major sentences there. And I think the lowest sentence was 4 years. And I think that was Matthew Cogburn. But it was actually 10 years for to serve. But some guys got, I think Rester Cruz got nailed. I'm pretty sure. I think that Reverend Mr. Gary, I'm gonna lose everything guy. I think he just got out recently, but he was looking at 20 years. Lorne's lucky it wasn't in that jurisdiction.
Yeah, so I suppose from that aspect. David Kay, how long did he get? Did he get 6 years?
He got 6.5. He went to, according to the update, he had a bench trial in federal court. So he bypassed the jury, which is a big mistake in a case like that because if you're going to depend entirely upon the judge, you better make sure you don't lie because you're going to get nailed for that. And that's what happened. He thought he committed perjury, even though he didn't hold him in contempt for it. He held it. He just decided to do that during sentencing. So, yeah.
Should we go to the beginning of the chat and see if we can pinpoint when Lorne, let's just say that you was a lawyer and you'd never looked at this before ever, and you was trying to establish when he committed the offence, because at this point, really, you could argue there's just two people having a conversation, which of course it is. So if we carry on, when do we think
I actually used to daydream about that. What if I had this case? What if it was assigned to me?
Wouldn't that be brilliant?
What if I had to go to Warren County jail and interview Lorne for the first time? Of course, you do your homework and you read this chat log before you go see him.
Yes.
You'd look at all the evidence as much as you can. And there's a chance you may not have it yet because there's no reciprocal discovery till you get to court. So, but once you do get your eyes on this thing, I would just look at this thing and say, you know what? Do not waste the court's time on this thing because you're going to end up paying for it. Hold on a sec. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, fine.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's funny because I finally got this thing working.
I've just got a bit of I can hear an echo coming, but no, it's okay now. Can you just see the bit that I've highlighted there?
Yeah.
That's the first time in the chat that Lorne brings up sex. He uses the word sex, and it's also his introduction. It's the first time we get to see what his intentions are, although we know.
I think his intentions are more illustrated in the next line.
It bothered me a lot then. Now I've just come to realise it's just part of growing up, laugh out loud. You mean like he's validating it in a way?
It's okay to talk about sex and stuff. You That's his way of saying, people think it's dirty, but it's not. It's just normal, it's natural. Go ahead and touch yourself, things like that.
So would you say this is when he could potentially commit the offence for the first time? I mean, I would suggest it's as soon as he starts the conversation, but from a legal standpoint.
No, I don't see that. No, not yet. Let's see. My nieces, the Dons. Definitely, yeah. It takes a while for him to really become culpable. See me sneeze. I mean, this is all just grooming. And that's the nature of grooming, by the way. Grooming is an ambiguous process. You can interpret it as somebody who's grooming somebody for sex or just innocent chatter. It's the whole point. It's the idea is to be deceptive about trying to seduce somebody.
He says it again here at 10:14. It's when they talk about sex, some people think it's perverted.
Again, the communications are fine. It's what he does in terms of trying to elicit an act out of the communication or sends a picture of himself exposed. Don't tell me your last name. Don't tell me your last name. See, all this stuff looks like, if this case came to me and this is all I had, this is what they were charging him on.
You'd be struggling.
He would have a lawsuit. Lorne would have a lawsuit. So far, it's all grooming. You got to remember, grooming is a deceptive way of talking to make it to earn somebody's trust. Number one, for a specific purpose, and we got to figure out what that purpose is. You can't do that until you get past the grooming.
Me and Adam have talked about this in the past. This line is something that disturbs us a great deal. When he mentions here, it's obviously scare tactics, but what's disturbing is his brain conjured up that word. Now, I don't want to overkill it, and I certainly have never tried to pin Lorne with something that he's not done because it's fucking ridiculous. But it is disturbing how that word pops up in his brain. And I read that as him trying to demonstrate what a great protector he is, and that's one of the things he can protect you from. Yeah, I tend to agree because but within that one sentence, he's mentioned murder and rape to a 13-year-old girl.
Yes, but not a crime.
No.
Just so you know, to give you information to anybody, this is him just trying to gain her trust. And in a very stupid way, by the way. Dirty things on them too. He's trying to break the subject. Now, even just talking to her dirty is not a crime. Okay, hang on a sec. Notice that before, because you have First Amendment issues here, believe it or not.
Really?
Well, the Supreme Court did say, however, that sending obscene materials to a minor is considered obscene and an exception to the First Amendment. So that is one of the, not all speech is covered by the First Amendment. Yelling fire in a crowded theater, things like that cause immediate harm.
Wow.
You noticed that before. But so far, this is just, I could defend this. Maine is right, but Bonnie's giving her geographic lessons. I wonder if Lorne has ever been in an airport before.
That's a good question. In fact, has he ever left the UK? He's never left the US, has he?
Well, he had to in order to get to Alaska. I think that's where he's stationed, so he had to go through Canada. But I think he's been on a plane before because he was in the Air Force. But I don't think he's ever been in a civilian airport. I doubt that. Let's see. Did you? I mean, when you're kissing him. Okay, this is the other typical grooming technique that I find really funny. How they talk about their previous sexual experiences with, in this case, Derek. And that's kind of an icebreaker for them. It makes it sound like they're trying to mentor them, but in a way, they're just getting their own rocks off. That's what this is. And also trying to loosen them up to talk to them. I think it's adorable. What's so adorable? Your innocence. I love the way he spells that.
I know, it's great, isn't it? He doesn't understand that word, does he? It's not just a spelling error. He just doesn't understand the word.
You should look anxious too, by the way. Let's see.
Is it? What about this bit here? Does this not constitute an offence?
It's getting there though. It's a matter of if he, again, that's not necessarily obscene. Yeah, I'm sure you must know that a boy's penis. And I say, do you know what it's called, a boy?
No, you're right, because you could argue.
You could actually call that instructional. Believe it or
Yeah.
not, actually call it. But again, we got to tie it up. We got to tie it up with an intention here. And we don't know what his intentions are. Like I
You're
said,
right.
as a lawyer, I could jump all over that.
What about this bit then?
No,
Because it's still the same thing, isn't it? He's not. I don't know though. What? Because he's describing a specific sexual act there, isn't he?
it's getting on the. Again, pornography can be in word form too. But that sticks his. By the way, he always says sticks his penis.
Yeah.
He wants to stick it in there like a weapon of some sort or something. He never says things like slide or whatever else. Stick it in there like I'm gonna pop a balloon. I don't know what this is, but he's getting close to obscenity right here. He's getting close, especially since he knows that she's 13.
How about this bit then? Have you ever experimented with it? Because it's a question.
It's just a question. It is. That's all it is. What's wrong with that?
And it's the same with this. Have you ever touched yourself down there?
Yep. These are just inquiries.
Girls touch themselves because it feels good. What about this? So, is this the start of this offence?
That's the start. That's the start. That's the topical sentence or the topical paragraph of the indictment.
Right.
At 9/17/07, 11/24/09, the defendant says, "Are you trying it now?" No. Having sex, right? Okay. The way you really are is having sex with the boys. You ready for this? Yeah. Take your finger and push it in. Okay, that's actually more than just obscenity. There, that is. I would say that's. Let's see. There's so many statutes to look at. Let's see. Attempted aggravated assault. Delinquency of a minor is too minor for that. Let's see. But there's some aspect where essentially you're taking your words and you're trying to create action out of them.
Yeah.
On the other end, that would be hard for me to defend. Okay, that would be. I would not be able to put that in any other context than for what it's meant.
The law in the UK this offence would be because he's trying to get sexual gratification. The offence in the UK is trying to incite a minor to engage in a sexual activity, and the points to prove would be: does the offender get sexual gratification or attempt to get sexual gratification?
That's what I should have done I did not find those statutes, but you're exactly right. Those are more along those lines, where you're leading a minor wayward like that. Yeah, and she's a minor. You got to have all those predicates. You got to know she's a minor, things like that, or at least in your mind she's a minor. So
do we agree that in this case he's got nowhere to go with what he said here? There's no getting out of that.
Yeah,
no pun intended.
The statute you just discussed would apply there. Trying to get a minor to do something over the internet like that.
Yeah.
Telling you that, blah, blah, blah. Girls do it all the time. Really sure? Yeah, positive, blah, blah, blah. Like I say, whatever. Are you curious now? All of this stuff gets tied in later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of these things where if you're listening, say you're doing surveillance and you got the place bugged that you're surveilling, and you think, I can move in now, that's enough. Well, sometimes you want to wait a little bit longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In this case, it would be worth it because he's got a lot more in him. Lord is not finished. This is he's got some power. He's got some staying power here.
Has he? Wow.
Yeah, don't do it fast. This is all. I use that whole section. Okay, so that's one. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Okay, I didn't actually finish the attempted kidnapping thing because I think Joey raised a good point. The evidence has to be pretty strong to bring something like that. And plus, you've got enough statutes out there that can put these guys away for a while.
Yeah.
But I just want to go over the evidence real quick on the attempted kidnapping. I already went over what was in the chat log, but let's consider what he actually did. Okay, we know that he said, "I'll pick you up at night." In the chat log, we know he said all that stuff. And we also know that the decoy fucked it up at the end when she's the one that suggested that she goes back to his house rather than the other way around. But consider this also. When he came in, he left his gifts in the truck. Now, the reason why I'm saying all this is you want some evidence that he was not planning to stay there but take her and leave almost right away. Because in the chat log, it says that as well. You're going to be ready. You're going to have your bags packed, things like that. So what he does that's consistent with that is he leaves all of his stuff in the car. You know, that expensive bracelet and the condoms. He also, if you remember, you hear the key alarm kind of ding a little bit before she says hey, and before he says hey girl. You know, you hear the alarm and then you hear him shut his door. I can't quite make out whether he's left his keys in the ignition or not, because that's another indicator that he was planning on just staying there briefly and taking her out of there. That's evidence that he was planning on taking her away. By the way, he doesn't have to take her across state lines for a kidnapping charge. For a federal one, yes, but for a state, no. All he has to do is move her 2 feet, believe it or not.
Wow.
It's like,
so just putting her in the car would be enough.
Would be enough, exactly. So he had the gifts in the car. I believe he left his keys to the ignition. I tried to study as much footage as possible of him coming in and determine whether he put his keys in his pocket, whether they were in his hands. I couldn't find them anywhere. But I believe that they were in the car. But that's more evidence if they were, that he was only there temporarily just to pick her up and get out of there. And then finally, take a look at October 7th at 10:02:33.
October 7th, just a sec. Come on.
You're doing well. You went past.
Wow, he was doing a lot of talking on October 8th. Look at all this.
What did I say, AM or PM?
Come on, Lorne, stop yapping, man. Jesus, he's quite the prolific little chatter there, isn't he?
I know you're actually in the 8th. Let's go to the 7th.
Right. Yeah, I was just trying to. Sorry, what time?
Sorry, give me 1 sec. At 10:02:33.
10. Hang on a minute. It'd be easier if I just move the cursor up. Where is it?
10:02. Keep going. Keep going. God, he's a gatherer.
Wow.
Here we go.
Not yet, anyway. I can wear shorts if you want me to, then they'll be a lot easier to take down, and I can leave them down for you the whole way back here.
He's talking about his wardrobe, what he's going to wear on the trip. What did he wear? Shorts. By the way, October 7th, which isn't the warmest time of year, especially at 8:30 at night. Excuse me, October 18th when he got arrested. So, again, Lorne wears anything anyway. But then he keeps asking, do you want me? He makes shorts the issue here. Do you want me to wear shorts? Oh, yeah. I can touch my feet. Okay. But the fact that what he wore was consistent with what he said he was going to wear on the chat log.
I've never even considered that in the whole time.
In conjunction with the act that he was going to commit. In other words, I'll wear shorts while I kidnap you so you can touch my dick. And
amazing.
You wore shorts.
Amazing.
All right, it's things like that you can pick up. So, in a sense, if the decoy did not take away the possible attempted kidnapping charge, I think it would have been a strong case. Whether they would have charged them, I don't know. They might have had plenty enough, but I just wanted to finish up that attempted kidnapping thing because
it's a great point. I'm sure everybody's glad you brought that up. And just as we go through this now, I'm sorry to keep going back to it, but the fact that he kind of said in his lawsuit tried to befriend and protect the girl, it's just crazy. I don't think he read the chat log when he was writing all that, did he? When he was writing his lawsuit, so I just think he conveniently forgot. He was a bit like burying his head in the sand, and he just thought, maybe if I don't mention the sexual element, the judge will just not read it.
How could he not read the sexual element in reading this chat log? It's impossible.
But that's what I mean. I think he's deliberately not read it because he knows he'll then not be able to do the lawsuit. So it's just a case of him hoping that the judge didn't read it.
I think his best hope as a defense lawyer is to get this thrown out. Remember we talked about chain of custody?
Yeah.
We don't know whether this was in any way changed or modified or anything like that, because the police didn't have custody of it the entire time it was, at least while it was being made. I would have made my argument there. That was his best legal argument. So, but let's assume I throw out the chat log. Let's say that the judge rules it inadmissible. What do I got left? I get that phone call, and I got the photographs. I think without the comedy relief and looking at the chat log, those two things by themselves make it worse, I think, for Lorne. I think see how pathetic he is and how really, I don't want to say harmless, because I don't think he is. I'm not sure about that. But, it would humanize him too much.
The reason I think Lorne is not harmless, because clearly somebody that comes out with this isn't, but I genuinely think that Lorne's too stupid and hasn't got enough about him to attract somebody that he would want. Does that make any sense?
I totally agree. I think that's why he thrives. That's why he can only live on a catfish relationship. First of all, I think he's got ED or some kind of a sexual dysfunction or something.
Yeah,
I don't know what.
100%.
And I believe that he also has enough awareness to realize that a woman couldn't stand to be in his sight for longer than at least 5 minutes.
Yeah, because if you look at the teacher, what's the teacher's name? The young teacher.
Walter Babst?
No, the younger teacher. Sounds like I'm singing a police song. Young teacher, the subject of schoolgirl fantasy. What's it? Rutherford.
Yes, Rutherford.
He's a decent-looking lad. I would presume that girls have said that in the chat before. I don't fancy him out. And he's got a good job, drives a nice car. It's like I've always said, he's got cards to play, hasn't he?
Yes, he does.
Whereas Lorne doesn't.
Well, another way of putting it is a lot to lose. Lorne had nothing to lose.
That's right. I mean, that's an important element of it. That's probably why he didn't have as much fear, because what's he got to lose, of course. Not that he's a brave person, but really, I mentioned this, when he got caught, the only thing that changed in his life was he was incarcerated. He didn't lose anything, did he? Because he had nothing to lose.
No, as a matter of fact, for somebody who was living this kind of nomadic lifestyle or this kind of impoverished lifestyle that he is, I would imagine that 5 years not worrying about paying bills or rent and getting three squares and a cot every day would be heaven for Lorne.
Well, yeah, think of all he achieved when he was inside. He learned to play the guitar very poorly. He learned to write a very poor novel. He learned to do really poor lawsuits. He learned to cook. He got big on, he put a bit of muscle on. So, I mean, he achieved more inside than he did outside.
Absolutely. A lot of guys do that. A lot of guys come out much better. They get their education, they get off drugs, whatever their issues are. And if they have the good support system waiting for a lot of guys, sometimes jail's what they needed.
Yeah, of course.
5 years is a little long, though. Usually those guys are in jail for a couple of weeks or something. But we had to keep Lorne from society on this one. But this is. I can go through this thing. I could charge him with a lot of things, but again, not necessarily. It wouldn't necessarily work with all of it. But I think that some of these huge charges. I think attempted rape should have been one. I think, and again, attempted kidnapping should have been one, because I think there's evidence in the chat log to prove he was planning on putting her in a car and traveling with her. And also what he wore and all this other stuff, and the keys were still in there, and it was, all this other. I think he could have made a case for that. And if you had a good jury that hated him enough, he'd go down on it for sure. Let's see. I think they should have got him for the child attempted
distribution.
Actually production, which is even worse. They should have gone for that. That alone, he'd be even if he ran the sentences concurrently, he'd be looking at 30 years.
Wow.
And I kind of wish that he won his motions to set aside and vacate his verdict that he was blaming his attorney on, because that would have put Lorne right back on the trial docket.
But the problem is with that, we'd have never have got the Lorne reality show.
Oh, well, unless it's from prison. But
I don't think they'd have allowed that, but it would have been funny.
Well, we touched on this last time. When Lorne was fighting for his freedom and everything else, he has no idea how much he was flirting with disaster. He was absolutely, and he had already served his term. If he got that motion allowed where they said, yeah, your attorney wasn't really competent or didn't zealously represent you, we're gonna put that back on the trial list, and we'll add the 5 years that you got to time served in the event that you're convicted. But let's go to trial with it. And then the jury came out and convicted him on all these counts.
Yeah.
So he'd be looking at maybe 30 years. And guess what? Don't worry, Lorne. You get 5 years as good credit. So it's only 25 now. So don't worry about that.
Oh dear, if only Lorne could see it how you do, but of course that'll never happen. We're going to have to start wrapping up because it's like midnight here and I've got to get up for gym in the morning. So what, is there anything you highlighted that you think's kind of really, have we been over most of it? Is there anything?
Well, nothing that I don't want to get started that we can't finish, but we can do this again at some point if you want. But no, I mean, I think we got the gist of this thing. I think it's really important that people understand that there's one thing that stays stagnant, and that is the law and how it's applied. And a lot of people have different theories about Lorne. Lorne could have done a lot worse, but he got lucky. In my view, he got lucky.
It's interesting because even as you know, I've never felt sorry for him, but I have understood why he was pissed off, because what he consistently did in his lawsuits was highlight the Murphy case and why they got off with it. But of course you're right, it's a different state, it's a different set of circumstances, and it all stems from the fact that he can't take responsibility. If you had enough about you to say, fucking hell, look at what I've done, you wouldn't even start going on about the Murphy case, would you?
No. As a matter of fact, there's so many ways. I mean, God, if he had a life coach that he'd actually listen to, I mean, the first thing I would do is I'd say, make it right with Betty. I know you don't have any money, but, at least do some work for her, do something, at least get you. And then start admitting, oh, my God, I was in a bad place, but it doesn't excuse me. I read it. It was gross. I'm ashamed. How about that? That would be nice. And that, by the way, you just raised a good issue. When he takes a plea, he has to do what they call an allocution. An allocution is where he has to fully admit to the charges, and in his own words, most of the time. Sometimes defense attorneys do it for them or whatever, and they ask him in a question form. But Lorne would have had to admit everything that he did and his intentions. But since he only pled out, he only had those 2 charges. I'd like to see what that allocution looks like somehow. I'd love to I think I read the transcript, and I think all he did was agree that he was guilty, and that was it. But I would have, if I was the prosecutor, I would have wanted him to lay it all out.
Did you not see that little thing where he went, I apologise to the courts and indeed the world. It is not like me to do such a terrible thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing I would have said. If I was the judge, I would have said, that's not acceptable. I don't see any
genuine remorse.
Well, acceptance and responsibility is what you need in order to get a plea. You got to make sure that you're not being prompted. The judge's got to make sure you're not being coerced into it. You're not being promised anything. That you're right. You're aware of all the rights you're giving up and all this other stuff. It's very, very structural. But if a defendant said, "Well, I'm sorry to the world. I'm not this guy," that's not enough for me. I want to know what you're sorry for.
Yeah.
I need
because he doesn't highlight anything, does he? He just says, I'm sorry, it's not like me, without actually saying what he's done.
Well, the reason why I would do that if I was the prosecutor is to avoid any kind of civil lawsuits. First of all, he waived those in his plea agreement, but he still went ahead with them anyway. But if you get that on the record where he admits to everything, he did all this, he did all that, he did under oath, his lawsuits can't even get started. So they could have saved themselves a lot of work by making them allocute properly, and they didn't.
That's
So
interesting. No, it's been really good. You've highlighted quite a lot of things that I've never even considered before. So I think a lot of people will quite enjoy this. So I really thank you for this, and I'm sure there's lots of other interesting elements we can pick from the chat log alone in the future, isn't there?
yes, there is. Like I said, we could just go through this and just talk forever. Really could. I could.
There's so much meat on this bone, isn't there?
Even if I could read it over and over too. I mean, that's the other thing. It's 407 pages, but it is 407 pages of pure ecstasy in my view.
You're not kidding. It's great. We need to make a movie, don't we? It's as simple as that. A movie or a documentary or a mockumentary or whatever. We need to do something.
As long as no money flows to him. That's all.
Well, we'll just change the characters' names just enough so he doesn't get any money.
I'm pretty sure you're not going to get an actor that can do that. As a matter of fact, I don't think you can get anybody to portray him. Lorne has to play himself. So he.
Do you know what? I'd be willing for him to get some money just to see that.
Yeah. Who would you cast as Lorne?
Wow.
Anybody in the comment room?
Yeah, I can't see them. My phone's gone dead, so I can't see the chat, but I can replay it. But we did say quite a while ago about the Law movie, and someone did come up with something. What about someone suggested who was him that was in the Bourne Identity?
Yes.
What's he called?
Reborn. Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Because you could. Oh, what about James Franco? Because he made a great Tommy Wiseau, didn't he? Couldn't he make a great Lorne Armstrong?
I think you need somebody like a Steve Buscemi, goofy-looking kind of guy somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe put some weight on him a little bit, because he also has the acting chops to do it, and you need chops to do this role. I think. I don't think this comes natural to anybody. But anyway, listen. Can I do a shout out to? I want to say hi to Clobber and Pence and let's see, Conscious Type and Joey, of course, and Emma, if you're listening, and everybody. I stand on the shoulder of giants, guys.
It's been you're part of. You're just one of us. We're all. The only difference being is I have a bit more time. Well, I used to do these videos every now and again, but they're just drying up a bit lately. But it's been brilliant. I can't wait to do another one. It's just our paths just need to cross, don't they? So it's not always easy. Plus, my computer always breaks.
Yes. And you know what? The Boston-London connection works for the first time since 1776.
Brilliant. Right. Thank you very much again for joining me. Everybody in the chat, I can't say goodbye to you individually because I can't see who, because my phone died because I'm an idiot and I didn't charge it up. So, another technical error on my behalf. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please leave any comments if you haven't. We will do some more of these at some point when we get the time. So, guys, Shin, thank you again.
Hey, no problem. It was fun.
And, guys, we'll speak